I was sitting in your lobby, admiring your vast, amazing, beautiful school, and I saw this. I was like, oh, what if I really wanted to go to Pryor Park? This is what life is all about. This is on your promo. This is on literature in the front of your school. I go to this school to find out what life is all about. So, is this what life is all about? What do you think? This? No? Not sure. Okay. So, today I do want to talk about the issue of science and Christianity because it seems like it is a hot button topic. And it seems like there's a lot of conflict here. And it seems like it's a huge problem, at least since the Enlightenment and the Reformation and the Renaissance, during that whole time when lots of stuff happened. And people became enlightened, supposedly. We did. We definitely learned a few things. But since then, there's been just this huge problem. But still, religion's huge. Christianity, there's 2 billion people who still believe in God, even though, science has taught us a lot of things. There's still a heck of a lot of people who believe in maybe Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism. So science hasn't totally solved all the problems, but has it done away with quite a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assume that today, science, or the idea of science, an idea of science has taken hold as a reigning philosophy within culture and possibly within your school, possibly within your mind, maybe competing for the crown of your life. What you think is most important. Is it God? What defines reality? Or is it science? Do these things mix? Does it matter? So to start off with, I want you to you have about 1 minute or 30 seconds to a minute. I want you to talk to the person next to you. See if you can give me a definition of science. Give me a definition of science. Go ahead. That's a good explanation. It's a good explanation. So I think I would probably agree with that. It's a pretty good explanation. Science would be the definition of what we look at within the universe. All that we see, taste, touch, feel, hear, sound, measure. Yes?
We've got a good one over here. It's trying to explain the universe, or the world that we live in, through facts.
Facts. Okay. Through facts. Observable facts. Through observable facts. Now, and I guess a lot of scientists, the reason why there's still debate in science is like, well, what is a fact? What's really real? What's true? It's called the study of epistemology. How do I come to know what I know? This podium right here, how do I know it's there? Well, I see it. I can taste it. I can measure it. But the laws of physics or say that with matter and energy, I should be able to put my hands right through this thing. It should work, right? It should go right through it because there's so much space. But somehow it doesn't happen. We've got to figure out how all these laws work together. Now, I would presume I want to talk to you not necessarily just about science, but about something within science that I think is like a virus. It's a virus within science. It's taken hold of science and it's captured it. It's something called scientific materialism. And it holds captive science and stops it from being liberated to discover all that the world is and that God has possibly created that we can't observe. Now, is science and Christianity, is it a matter of finding truth within falsehood or falsehood within truth? Is that what it is? Is it like oil and water that don't really mix? They just somehow seem to get along because they both are there? No. Is it like Jesus and Darwin? In a fight, once again? No. It's not. That is not the answer. Science and Christianity do mix. But let me ask this question. Why does a kettle boil? Why does it boil? Why is my kettle boiling right here? Convection. The heat energy agitates the molecules of water, H2O, which cause the bubbles to rise and stuff to happen. That's why, right? Well, maybe. But actually, the kettle's boiling because I want a cup of tea. See, there's two different explanations. One explanation has to do with chemical processes, laws of observation that I can see, things I can see that are happening in the rule of nature, or whatever's happening in nature. And the other has to do with agency. What made this thing happen? Or what determined it? Or what started the process? Or what started the process, but also watched the process along as I turned up or turned down the heat on my oven. Why did the kettle boil? That's the difference between the answers that Christianity has and the answers that science has. So, everybody, no matter where you're at, you have a starting point. Now, I want to ask you this question. For the scientist as well as the Christian, we have starting points. And sometimes for the scientific materialist, which I'll scrape later, they have a different starting point. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think is a starting point of science? Okay? What does the scientist have to have faith in? Faith is involved. As soon as I assume something, faith is involved. So let me ask you, I want you to talk to your partner, someone next to you. You have 1 minute. What does a scientist have faith in? There's a few answers probably. Go ahead. There's at least a few answers. I'm thinking with one, but yeah.
Evidence behind their theories.
Evidence behind their theories. There's evidence that hold up this theory that I have of how things work. Yeah.
Laws of physics.
The laws of physics. It's got to work. If physics don't work, then the kettle won't boil. All right. Yeah. Any other ones? Yeah? Nothing. The scientist has faith in nothing. Faith in nothing except that the world is rational. That's one thing physics, cosmology professors, pretty much all scientists have to agree on, that I can make attempts at understanding this world. If the world's not rational, chaos is everywhere and there's no order. I have to believe that by me asking these questions and making observations and taking measurements, I can figure out how things work. If I don't, that's a big problem. Then we're never going to get along, we're never going to agree on anything. But somehow scientists agree on some things, like the laws of physics. So, can anybody give me a definition of what the law of gravity is? What's gravity? Okay. It's actually kind of hard to define what gravity is. Now, I can tell you what it does. I can tell you the effects that it has on things. I can tell you how it causes the world to go around and all the planets and stars to be in their location. I can tell you how it's spit galaxies out that far because of the law of gravity. But what is it? Where did it come from? Force. But it's more than force. It actually has direction. Force with direction had to start somewhere. Direction imposes purpose. Implies purpose, I should say. So, gravity is there. There was actually a scientist, his name is Ben Stein. He said the greatest deception of modernism is the idea that the laws of nature explain the world to us, when all they do is describe structural regularities. What we can see, what we can observe. Now, the cool thing for us humans is that God created us with some of His capacities. The desire to create and the desire to discover. And I kind of think that in heaven, those same things will expound more and more and more. And we'll want to create more, we'll want to discover more. And those things kind of go like this, up and up and up. That's why we have technology. Because we want to discover and then we create with what we've discovered. Now, the problem is, when it comes to scientific materialism, this is what is battles against Christians who are scientists, or scientists who are Christians. Holds that matter and energy is a fundamental substance in nature. That all phenomena, including mental phenomena and consciousness, are the result of material interactions. This is a fundamental assumption of science. And this has infected the idea of science, or what we do, scientific methodology. It's infected our institutions, including most schools, including most science curriculums. Scientific materialism. It's not science. It's an ideology. Just like Christianity is, just like Islam is, just like postmodernism is, which says there is no meta-narrative. This is a problem. And this is myself as a Christian, this is what I want to fight actually against. Not just fight against, but I want to provide an ulterior way to look at the world. So, what are some things we assume about science? We can assume, number one, we can make sense of things. The universe is intelligible. It's already there. We're just ready to discover it. We can assume that everything makes sense, and eventually we'll figure it all out. That's what, most of the time, that's what we teach. That's what you teach in science classes, right? Which is, we'll discover a lot of things, but will we discover everything? The problem is it's a faith statement, it's a belief statement. And some of it is rested on the opposite of this statement. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Now, a scientific materialist would say there's absence of evidence that God exists. They'll never be able to prove that God does not exist because of the converse. It's not evidence of absence. This is where science and philosophy or Christianity or religion mix. Now, I want to ask you the question. Well, I guess it should be noted, and you guys kind of know this because boys especially, well, not boys, boys and girls, we fall in love. There's girls. How can I explain this feeling I have for this woman who's amazing, right? I just can't explain it. She's just, I just want her. Now, it's not, that you can't just say that's just DNA. That's just not DNA. I don't think so. Are those impulses, the feeling of love, really? Is it really just material? I don't know. Just because you can't see it or measure it or analyze it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is a very basic rational argument, but this idea levels the playing field when it comes to the interpretation of nature, the universe, and how everything works. Okay? So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. What do you think? Talk with your friend. You got a couple minutes. Are we all survival machines for the same kind of replicator molecules called DNA? Okay, what do you think? Come on. Let's hear some feedback. Any answers? Any brave souls want to say, this is what I think? It's not exactly a small group discussion, but it can be a little bit of a discussion, All right.
Well, I think our DNA drives us to what we want, but that's not saying that God didn't make DNA, for example. That's just saying that DNA enables us to have serotonin, which causes us to want things that we want.
So DNA causes us to want things. My DNA says, Sky, you need water to survive, therefore you will go looking for water, therefore the brain will cause me to thirst, so I will have a desire based on what my DNA tells me. That's what you're saying. But it doesn't mean God didn't put it there.
It's saying that your brain is there because of your DNA, and the things you want are because your brain functions.
Okay. So first came DNA, which created my brain, which told me what I should want. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else? I'm not going to argue with you back and forth. It's fine. We'll save that for later. All right. It is interesting. Now, the funny thing with A, this one, it assumes we're survival machines. Richard Dawkins wrote a book with this primary thesis. Give or take. It's called The Selfish Gene. He says that's what determines all purpose, all desire. No God, no driving purpose in nature. It's your DNA. That causes you to want. That causes you to feel. That causes you to be conscious. Try to define consciousness. That's hard. The second thing is that we're governed. It also assumes we're governed by things. The second one assumes that we're governed by things other than the material world. The electrical, and also the electrical impulses in our brains, or what our brains have designed us to think. We can be governed by things outside of this world. Now, if we get outside of this, I kind of think scientific materialism, it kind of treats us, it acts as a dictator over and above science. It says science, this is what you have to believe. This is what you have to act like to be true. You can't step outside of what is observable. Now, but what if we have a Christian worldview that says there's things outside of what's just observable? Right? As we kind of move on, there's some things that we can observe about nature. Some things we can be sure of, right? I think, in some sense, this picture, I found this picture, this is kind of what scientific materialism does to us. It says, no, you can't talk about things that you don't observe. You can't talk about things you don't measure. But yet, we all still fall in love if we're open enough to. We still speak about it. So, I want you to name a couple laws, a couple rules that you have here at school. That's chewing gum. No chewing gum. Yeah. What else? You gotta have your rules, right? What? No hair, boys. No hair below your collar. That's true. Okay. Now, okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, I would say if I came in off the street, which I did, because I just walked up the street, I'd say, you know what? This is the only reality I've ever experienced. You people are beautiful. Wow. All the guys have hair above their collar. Wow. Every human must have hair above their collar. Because this is all I've experienced. In fact, you all wear dark blue things over your shoulders. And this thing around, this rope around your neck. What is that? That's all human men must wear that. That's interesting. What am I deducing? I'm deducing based off what I've observed. And if all I've observed is this, then I say, I will make a law out of that. That is true at all times and all places, because this is all I've experienced. What happens when you get outside of what you've experienced? What happens if there's other laws at work? Here's some crazy laws. In Miami, it's forbidden to imitate an animal. It's a crazy law, doesn't make sense. In Tennessee, it's against the law to sleep while driving. Yeah? Yeah. In Singapore, it's illegal to chew gum, just like here. Not unusual. Now, what are some laws of nature? Can somebody give me a couple laws of nature? Anybody? Anybody? Let me give you a couple. How about these? You can't win. No new matter can be created. Number 2, everything's moving from order to disorder. Number 3, the speed of light is the fastest speed in the universe. But some things are not really laws because they've changed. Can you guess any of these that have changed? Come on, science students. Ah, look at that. Third one. Scientists slow the speed of light. It's true, actually. Around the world, from 1928 to 1945, the speed of light dropped. And between 1973 and 2010, the force of gravity changed. These are supposed to be laws. These are supposed to be fixed. In fact, if these change, everything about physics changes. Everything. Everything. But this is a faith statement. These things don't change. If you challenge the scientific establishment on these basic rules, you'll get thrown out. They won't listen to you. The only reason I can say it is because I'm a Christian pastor. But it's true. It's true. I'm not, I don't claim to be a PhD in molecular physicist, in molecular physics, but I can say these things, but it's still true. It has, Google it. It's there. Look it up. Now, what is something, so light is not so fast. What's something that you do every day? You have 30 seconds. Tell your friends something you do every day. Something you do. Let's hear something back. What do you do every day? What do you do every day? Pass a test every day. What else? What do you do? I didn't hear that right. What do you do every day? Come on, I can't hear you. Come on. Do you brush your teeth? Don't say no. Don't say no. Do you like take a shower maybe? What? Go to the toilet. You get up. You wake up. Now, what if science has to do with observing everything and then making rules based off the observations that you have. If something happens a certain amount of times, when we make the observations over and over and over, we notice patterns, we assume them, we conglomerate those patterns into fixed laws, and this is what we use to interpret the rest of the world. The problem is that laws happen to be human-centered. They do. They happen to be human-centered. They all revolve around us and what we can see. They all have to do with what we've observed up to this point. Now, scientists have this problem too, and it's hard to kind of get outside of ourselves. The thing is, at certain points, some things contradict. Now, what if some things change? Like, what if? What if? I mean, what if? You guys, I did show this one last night, right? What if the human's not like that? That is. What if the hokey pokey is really what it's all about? What if the hokey pokey is? What if? Who knows what this stands for within science? Come on, what's big G? Ah. It's the symbol for gravity. It's G, right? Okay. What if the things we trusted in so much within science that says we know things, or we eventually know things, we can determine the future of things based off of what we know and the patterns we establish, what if they're wrong? What if gravity is not just a good idea? What if it's the law, right? What if it's not a law? Around the turn of the millennium, an Australian astronomer John Webb and his team found that measurements of light in the sky, from measuring those using the fine, how would you call it, the fine structure constant, I don't know exactly how to say it, but they found out that the level of G, or the size of the force of G, was slightly different at smaller parts of the sky. The implications are enormous. If different rates constantly varied, then these would create different quantities of time and how we measure time. If that's true, maybe the universe isn't as old as we thought, and maybe we can't be so sure of some things. What if the universe isn't as old as we thought? Then if that's true, what if you go back to the Bible? So what if the Bible actually is true? I don't know. You know, a lot of ways to look at Genesis account. So now, the problem I'm talking about here is scientific materialism. Big G, that's the start idea. Now, generally, science views reality as this. It has a direction. It starts with maybe the Big Bang. It goes forward in a linear fashion through time, and eventually there'll be not explosion, but everything will disseminate so far that there's everything, all the particles are so far away from each other, expand so much that there will be nothing in existence, or there'll be a big crunch, and all gravity will go zoom, back into nothing. Start Big Bang, back to nothing. But the cool thing is, as a Christian, this would be scientific. You can be a scientific materialist and believe in this. But what if it looks like this? Like this. This is outside of scientific materialism. Here's all of time on a linear pattern, and God is outside of that, having the ability to act within or without time. Two different ways to do it. That way, only within time, outside of time. As soon as you step outside of time, as soon as you step outside of everything has to be measured and observable, all kinds of cool possibilities open up. The problem is, and you guys may not realize this, but you'll, at some point, I think you'll find this out. Scientists, and we as well, only abandon a theory when a better one is offered. We're not going to give up on a belief system until something better is suggested that makes sense. That's the problem. But the cool thing is materialism is not required. Scientific materialism is not required. Now, I do want to change direction a little bit and go in a little bit different direction. I want to talk about this. What is that? Is that true? Is that real? Does anybody know within science what TOE means? TOE.
Theory of everything.
Ha ha! Look at that. Theory of everything. Good man. Now, what a theory of everything does, it tries to explain everything that has ever existed, or will ever exist, or could ever exist. And it tries to do it all around a single unifying principle. Now, we thought we had it with Einstein and his theory of relativity. We didn't quite do it because things changed and quantum theory came up, which is so cool, which is very, very good for Christian scientists discovering the universe and what could actually possibly happen. So, I want to ask you these questions. These are kind of just small questions, you know. You have about 2 minutes to talk to your friend. What can we say is true about God? It's true in all times, all places. Or can you be a Christian and believe in absolute truth and not believe in absolute truth? Okay? But just choose one of those. Talk to your partner. So, is there any kind of answers to any one of these? Any comments? Anyone want to speak up? Anybody brave? Got a backbone? It's okay if not. We can move on. But if so, huh? Okay. Last chance? No? Can you be a Christian and not believe in absolute truth? This is kind of what I want to hit on. And as it relates to science, in order to know something, in order to make any kind of measurement, you have to have a starting point. If you want to know how tall I am, you can't just say, oh, he's about big enough. What does that mean? He's about tall enough. I have to have a starting point. How many inches? How many meters am I? And this is true in all realms of space and time. I have to have a starting point. I have to have a space. Now, what's necessary to define a doctrine or position? A point. That point becomes the center of everything. Everything is divine in relation to it. Everything is relative to it. Now, whatever it is. So, for you, I want to ask you, what is your it? What do you know? Facts. Someone said facts. Science is the study of facts. Well, do we know? How do you know? I've just shown you that some things we don't know for sure. We're not so sure of. In fact, we may not ever be so sure of. We probably won't be. What's the smallest particle in the universe? Maybe. There's a lot that keeps getting smaller. 5 years ago, it was something different. What's the fastest speed in the universe? Not light. Keeps getting faster. What do we know for sure? I want to contend that if you can get rid of scientific materialism and you can go towards a Christianity or the idea of a God, there's 2 starting places that will lead you in science. Number one, or lead you, you have to start with this before you get to science. Number one is God exists. Because if he doesn't, everything is permitted, according to Dostoevsky. And the second, and I think the most important one for us, for me, is called the scandal of particularity. And this has to do with a finite point in time. Now, what this is that God came to live with us. God, infinite, eternal, omniscient, can't even know who he is. He came to be with us. He came to be a carpenter. He was born. He went poo. Okay? He actually did something. He existed in the universe. Yeah, Jesus went poo. Yeah. Right? This right here, this diagram is probably most helpful for me in understanding how Jesus Christ transformed everything. Everything before him led up towards him. Boom, Jesus happened. He affected everything from that point on all the way to the future, and it's like ripples that went back in time. He affected everything. He is the it. He is the center of all space and time. And hence, we can study science from that point of view. It's actually kind of interesting. What if that is central? What if knowledge and revelation from God is important? This is the idea right here. But we're going to move on from that. Christianity can offer a larger world in which science can operate than just scientific materialism. This guy, Max Planck. He's best known as one of the originators or main idea makers of quantum theory. And he believed, he was a Christian. He was a Christian. I won't say too much more than that. This guy wasn't exactly a Christian. This is what he did say. He didn't believe in a personal God, but he said it's impossible to have a non-created universe. Einstein said this. Didn't believe in a personal God, but I'd say he probably was a theist. Something's out there. He also said, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. And it's true. We're blind without science. We need science. We need the discovery of things that we can observe. Now, what is the alternative? What's the alternative to a scientific worldview? I want to give you the example. I'm going to show you a video if you want to get that ready here in a second. It's about 6 minutes long. It's an interview with Richard Dawkins and this guy called Ben Stein. And he talks to him about the big questions and whether God exists or what could happen if he did and how did things start and where are things going to end. So we're going to, that's about 6 minutes long. We're going to watch this video. I'm going to talk about a couple more things and then we're going to have some questions. You ready?
Hello, Professor Dawkins. How are you? I'm Ben Stein. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
You have written that God is a psychotic delinquent invented by mad, deluded people.
No, I didn't say quite that. I said something rather better than that.
Oh, well, please tell us what you said. Please tell us what you said.
Well, I would have to read it from the book.
No, please.
The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it. A petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak. A vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser. A misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully.
So that's what you think of God?
Yeah.
How about people believe in a God of infinite lovingness and kindness and forgiveness and generosity, sort of like the modern day God? Why spoil it for them? Why not just let them have their fun and enjoy it?
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I write a book, people can read it if they want to. I believe that it is a liberating thing to free yourself from primitive superstition.
So religion is a primitive superstition?
Oh, I think it is, yes.
So you believe it's liberating to tell people that there is no God?
I think a lot of people, when they give up God, feel a great sense of release and freedom.
Why do you think that? I mean, what's your dad? What's your scientist? What's your dad?
I think, well, I've had a lot of letters saying that, and I've...
There are 8 billion people in the world, Dr. Dawkins. How many letters have you had?
No, I haven't done that. That's quite true.
Professor Dawkins seemed so convinced that God doesn't exist that I wondered if he would be willing to put a number on it.
Well, it's hard to put a figure on it, but I mean, I put it as something like, 99% against or something.
Well, how do you know it's 99%?
I don't.
Saying not 97.
No, I did. You asked me to put a figure on it, and I'm not comfortable putting a figure on it. I think I just think it's very unlikely.
What? But you couldn't put a number on it?
No, of course not.
So it could be 49%.
Well, it would be. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but and it's quite far from 50%.
How do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I put an argument in the book.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
What was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right, and how did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility, and I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe.
Well,
but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
So the Hebrew God, the God of the Old Testament, he doesn't exist in your view?
Certainly. I mean, that would be a very unpleasant prospect.
And the Holy Trinity of the New Testament?
Nothing like that.
Do you believe in any of the Hindu gods? Like Vishnu?
How can you ask such a question?
You don't,
how
right?
could I? I mean, why would I, given that I don't believe in any others?
You don't believe in the Muslim God?
No. Why do you even need to ask?
So you don't believe in any God anywhere?
Any God anywhere would be completely incompatible with anything that I've said.
I'm just trying to make sure you don't believe in any God anywhere.
No.
What if after you died you ran into God and he said, "What have you been doing, Richard? I mean, what have you been doing? I've been trying to be nice to you.
Yeah.
I gave you a multi-million-dollar paycheck over and over again with your book, and look what you did."
Bertrand Russell had that point put to him, and he said something like, "Sir, why did you take such pains to hide yourself?"
But if the intelligent design people are right, God isn't hidden. We may even be able to encounter God through science, if we have the freedom to go there. What could be more intriguing than that?
Hello, Professor Dawkins. How are you? I'm Ben Stein. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. So it seems that even Richard Dawkins believes in some kind of designer. It just can't be God. It just can't be God. It just can't be God. It's got to be anybody but God. Sounds like a faith in something to me. Just a strict refusal or denial to believe in a God, something outside of what can be observed. Now, Richard Dawkins, I'm pretty sure I would define him, or he might define himself, as a scientific materialist. I can't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that would be it. Now, if we can get outside of scientific materialism and say that we can observe the world and something else might be happening there. If there is a God, it's kind of exciting. What can we discover about his world? What alternatives are there? And what kind of potentialities open up? Now, I want to take a second and go through a few. For one, nature, it's not Mother Nature, it's actually Sister Nature. And the sister nature, according to the Bible, is created first. So it's kind of like an older brother or sister. First came the plants, then came us. Next one. There's not laws, but maybe it's just habits of nature. Maybe that's a good way to look at it. Just nature's gotten into the habit of this. Something will change, get into the habit of that for a while. I don't know how long in between this and that is going to be. The cool thing is, this allows for a view of that God can affect change in the world. Next one. If the age of the universe is uncertain and laws are not fixed, God could have just spoken and everything came into being. Can you have a kind of faith where that actually could be possible? Yeah, evolution could be possible. But could that be possible? Why not? Next. It could be possible that mathematics, or the noetic world, is possibly the language of God. What if that's the language of God? That's what God speaks in. It's kind of exciting. I wonder when Jesus came back to life, and he shows up to his disciples, and he said, "Hey, Thomas, feel the scars. You see the scars in my hands? Touch my side." It was still Jesus. He still ate. He ate fish. He was on the side of the road. And Thomas was like, "It's you." Whoa. So what part of Jesus translated from when he was was human before to die and rose again, new resurrected life. What if there was an information-bearing pattern that translated what Jesus would have looked like, those scars, from this life into the next? What if mathematics could be used to describe that? It'd be kind of exciting. That's an area of science. What if it's not just Richard Dawkins' selfish gene, but we actually choose? We choose, we make our choices, we desire things, which most human experience would say that we actually choose, and that's an important thing, not the selfish gene. What if, I don't want to go into it too much now, but the area of quantum mechanics, quantum theory as a way of understanding God's predestination and possibly hope for the future. I won't talk about it too much now, but that's an idea. And what if the universe has a direction? Can direction imply a purpose? If it came from a place and is going towards a place, the future of that place, someone has in mind where that future could be, what if that's heaven? Direction, intentionality within science. It's there, it's in microbiology. It's definitely there. What if you inserted the idea of God into that rather than, nope, no God? It opens up all kinds of cool ideas. So I go back to the question of why. Why does the kettle boil? Because of all the mechanisms? Or does it boil because I want some tea? Now, I want to ask you, which question will you start with? Or which answer, which faith will you start with? Will you start with a faith in scientific materialism, the only thing that exists is what I can measure? Or will you start with a belief in God, which I believe would eventually lead you to a Christian God? Okay, that's it. Okay.